Hi, it's Simon here. I've not done an update in quite a while. It's been a few months. I've just been getting on with doing my protocol, taking the off labels, trying to keep fit and healthy in any way that I can. But more recently, there's been a few updates. I had some scans and I've now had the results and spoken with the professors, the doctors at St Mark's Hospital, and the news wasn't what I was hoping for, if I'm honest. So essentially, I'll give you a bit of a backstory. Um, you can skip forward later if you really need to, if you already know my story. But essentially, last year, around September 2024, after half my life of ulcerative colitis, I finally got the news that nobody ever wants to hear, that it had turned into cancer. It wasn't visible. There was no sign of tumour. Extremely early, it was caught. But the only option I was given was to essentially remove my entire bowel, the anus, give me a stoma and a bag for the rest of my life. So a huge, huge change to quality of life and lifestyle. And there's many other questions that came along with that. So, oh, hi there. Live well. Good to see you too. Yeah, essentially, the surgery was the only option that was being offered by the NHS. Um, Part of the reason being is the type of cancer that I've got is what's known as proficient mismatch repair. It's a colorectal cancer. But essentially, what the proficient part of the mismatch repair means is that it's highly immunoresistant, and so immunotherapy drugs, checkpoint inhibitors, things that potentially might help heal or revert the mitochondria, far less likely to work for the type of cancer that I have than if it was a deficient mismatch repair or different types of cancer. There are characteristics of different types of cancers that make them simpler or more difficult to treat. Sadly, mine is one of the more difficult. So, essentially, with the scan from the original diagnosis back from September last year up to March this year, there was a small tumour, 1.2 centimetres, so still very tiny, but still only option on the table, massive life-changing surgery. Still didn't want it, still was looking at metabolic therapy as a way to try and treat my cancer. And now up to July, sort of end of July this year, and on the MRI, now this is where it gets a little bit fuzzy. Essentially, what they're now saying is that they can see an area on the MRI that's a maximum of 2.5 centimetres by 1.5 centimetres, which they can just see that's there. They don't know if that's all tumour, they don't know if it's inflammation. They didn't do a colonoscopy this time, so they can't actually see it. So I don't actually know how much the tumour has grown, so I just have to assume that it has grown. And essentially, that basically means that the protocol that I was using, so the off-labels, ivermectin, mebendazole, fenbendazole, not something that you should try yourself without doing a lot of research or getting help from somebody with a medical background in alternative therapies. This is something I cannot advise you on. But essentially, it's not worked. And so I basically now am faced with trying to find something else that does work. The original protocol designed by Professor Seyfried for metabolic therapy essentially includes a glutamine inhibitor, and it is prohibitively expensive. It's potentially, I think the price that I most recently got was it's £7 per milligram. You take 2 milligrams per kilogram of body weight, and you take it 3 times a week prior to HBOT sessions, and protocol is 21 days. So I'm 80 kilos, a bit over, between 80 and 81. So for me, if the £7 per milligram is an accurate reflection of the price, and I've not reached out to people to supply this yet because I don't have the funds to do it. But if you do the workings out, you're up to near the £10,000 mark, which is far more cash than I have in the bank, unfortunately. I cannot pay out £10,000 for this glutamine inhibitor. Essentially what it does, so I've been doing a ketogenic diet, and I've been essentially starving my body of glucose. So my body for the last several months has been running on ketones. I've been using a high fat diet, 70% fat, 20% proteins, and the rest carbohydrates and sugars. So very, very, very low carbs and sugars. And whilst that's possible, it's slowed the cancer down because there are 2 fuel sources that can feed a cancer cell. There's glucose and glutamine. And glutamine is a normal part of your everyday diet. If you don't have enough in your diet, your body will make it. And so there's always loads of glutamine in your body that can also fuel a cancer cell. So I've taken away the glucose, but I've not been able to take away the glutamine. That's where the glutamine antagonist comes in, the £10,000. So this is something that I now feel, where I've tried to do this on kind of the cheap with other supplements and various other things, it looks like it's not working. So there has been some growth in the tumour. Don't know exactly how much because the MRI, for whatever reason, they just said it showed up as a fuzzy area, and it was labelled an area of concern. So the tumour might still be under 2 centimetres. I just don't know. I have to assume it's grown. So essentially, where that leaves me is I kind of feel like for me to do the protocol properly, I need to get hold of this glutamine antagonist, which means raising £10,000, which means I need to revisit my GoFundMe. And, really I was hoping that I was going to see very little change with the protocol that I designed for myself. But since that's not the case, I've got to try and raise 10 grand, and I've got to do it quickly. I put my information into an AI. So basically said, September last year, diagnosed cancer, not visible to the naked eye. March scan, 1.2 millimeters. July scan, potentially up to 2 centimeters tumour. It could even be slightly bigger. And the AI basically said that's potentially a normal growth pattern. And that's really not what I wanted to hear to do. I was like, maybe I've slowed it down. Maybe I've, got it. It certainly hasn't spread anywhere in my body. I also had a CT scan, so I'm lucky enough that it's still in the one place, still treatable. But I really need that glutamine antagonist. And so raising the money, raising the funds is the only way that I'm going to be able to do that. I have a GoFundMe. It's in the link below. I'll add it to the first comment and pin it. If you're able to donate even a small amount, it will be of massive help to me. Trust me, even if it's only a couple of pounds. Obviously, if it's 5, 10, 20, 50, brilliant, amazing. Love you. You are really saving my life, honestly. But if you can't, please consider, certainly at least liking and commenting on this video. But please follow my channel, share this video if you can, because it will make a massive difference to me. And I will, be ever so grateful for you doing that. I've got to raise this money. I have to do it quite quickly. I mean, if the timeline carries on the way it is, it could potentially get out of where it is, get to our organs, and obviously I don't want that. That's clearly not going to happen. So the sooner I can get the money raised, the sooner I can, get the glutamine antagonist. I can book in sessions for HBOT to do the oxidative stress when I've got the glucose and the glutamine really, pressed down to minimal levels. And really at that point, I stand a good chance of actually having the treatment, the protocol, really doing its job and killing off those cancer cells and, potentially healing me. And so, yeah, please, if you're able to donate, even if it's, like I say, even £1 or £2. Honestly, it doesn't sound like much, but it really will help, because if enough people do that, then eventually it's going to build up, and it's going to be enough for me to be able to get the protocol. But I am on a time limit here, so another month or two, maybe 3, it could break out from where it is. It could start getting in touch with other organs. It could start to be more likely of proliferating into other organs, and that obviously is a whole load of trouble that I don't want to get to. So please, if you can, just share this story. If that's all you're able to do, like, comment, subscribe. That really help the channel out. And I'll give you some more information about what I'm actually doing in the meantime on the next update. So hopefully I'll see you then.